share screen. Because I always want to make sure I spend enough time explaining what Husky Bites is and presenting. Here we go. All right. So welcome to season 3 of Husky Bites. As I was stating earlier, this was started in a pandemic. I have a feeling it's going to continue post-pandemic, and it will end. I promise everybody it will end. It's just a question of time. My name is Janet Callahan. I'm the Dean of the College of Engineering at Michigan Technological University, which is located in beautiful Houghton, which is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Oh gosh, Siri thought I said Siri. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Walt Shalm, for sponsoring tonight's Husky Bites. It's such a pleasure to be here. And so I want to point out again that Michael and Karen Gregory, Michael is of class of 69, have agreed to match dollar for dollar up to $25,000 of gifts directed toward the Michigan Tech Annual Scholarship Fund, which is scholarships for all students at Michigan Tech. And thank you, Michael and Karen. So I just want to remind people. And how do you give? You just go to the Give Now page, which is shown there, and under designations, select a radio button. If you'd rather direct your gift to athletics, that is totally fine. If you do that, I won't know about it unless you send an email to, and if you do, just send an email to engineering@mtu.edu, and you can be the sponsor of one of our Husky Bites. We do live stream these during the actual time, that is on Facebook, and we also post all the recordings, which are also transcribed on Husky Bites. And so in advance, thank you our speakers for kind of explaining what's on each slide, so that if a person can't see the slides, they can see what they can develop an understanding of what they are seeing. So I'd like to conduct our first poll of the day, which is just testing our audience. Who is joining us today? Pick a best answer here. And so just in a moment, you're going to see a poll, and hopefully our panelists can see the answers coming in quickly. And so we have a variety of attendees present. I wonder, can you guys see the poll live? Can the attendees see the results of the poll coming in live, or do I have to share it first? I know we can.
We can see. Oh, we can.
Yeah. Well, I have it on my screen now, so they might be able to see it. So overwhelmingly, we've got lots and lots of alumni. It's at about the 70% mark. We've also got what I call Michigan Tech family, who are our faculty and staff. We've got family of current or future students. We've got curious people. We've got Michigan Tech students and all kinds of things. And so you should be able to see that now if you are joining us today. So just to get an idea, there's no right answer, but if you were taking this poll in class, and you picked C, you would be the winner, because that seems to be right tonight. This is kind of classroom interaction in a pandemic. All right, so I'm gonna just, oops, I went too far. Let me go back one. Back. Okay, here we go. So I wanted to let you know the lineup for the whole year. Next week, I'll talk about that later, but the week following that, we have Russ Alger is going to talk about snow. We have volcanoes, we have cybersecurity, we have the Mackinac Bridge, we have backyard metals, Lake Superior, fishing, music with Adam Meckler, who is the director of the jazz program and does much more. We have wireless communication enterprise, and then we have migratory birds. So we have quite the lineup. And I just want to point out once here that we're having our winter break early on March 1st. So that just helps us catch up. Next week, the webinar speaker is Dr. Jeremy Goldman, who's one of our biomedical engineering faculty, with co-host Roger Guillory, who is also a biomedical engineering faculty member and also an alumnus of Michigan Tech. So they're going to be talking about how to stunt stenosis, which is a heart condition. All right, and so I'm going to stop sharing here, and with absolute absolute great pleasure. It is my honor to introduce Dr. Suzanne Sanregret as the co-host for this evening's Husky Bites. Suzanne is the athletic director of Michigan Tech since 2005, you know, her vision within the Huskies athletic programs and work on conference and national committees has positioned Michigan Tech as a leader in collegiate athletics. And Suzanne, please further introduce yourself, and as well, please introduce our speakers this evening.
Thank you, and hi, everybody. Thank you, Janet. As Janet mentioned, I am the athletic director here. I'm closing in on 16 years as AD, but 28 years in the athletic department, where I started after graduating from Michigan Tech in 1993. So I've been here a while. I think I've loved every second of my job, and people often ask me about it, and I just respond, I think I have the best job on campus because I get to work with incredible student athletes and coaches every day. With me today is Tom Monahan Smith. If you could wave, Tom. Oh, actually, they can see your name. Sorry. Tom is a fourth-year head coach with us, overseeing our men's and women's Nordic ski programs, and he's been a great ambassador for our trail system, but you know, he's really made an impact on our Nordic ski program, qualifying record number of Husky student athletes for the Ncaa championship. Matt Jennings is with us as well. He's in his ninth season as the head coach of our volleyball athletes. He's taken our team to 3 straight Ncaa postseason appearances from 2017 to 19, and he's been voted the GLIAC Coach of the Year twice. And our third guest with me tonight is Sam Hoyt. She's in her 3rd season as the head coach of the women's basketball program. She also was a student athlete here, played for the Huskies finished her season and career in 2011 when she guided as a player, as a point guard, our women's basketball program to the national championship game. She was also an All-American and an academic All-American at Michigan Tech. So we brought her back into the fold as an alumnus. Next slide for me. I just want to give you a brief overview of Michigan Tech athletics for those of you that aren't familiar. We have 15 varsity programs, and you can see them listed there: men's and women's basketball, men's and women's cross country, men's and women's Nordic skiing, football, hockey, women's soccer, men's and women's tennis, men's and women's track and field, and volleyball. And we recently launched, we are in our inaugural season, esports, which is a co-ed program with both men and women. So we are competing in the esports leagues across the country, which has been a perfect sport, a non-traditional sport during COVID. Not a lot of in-person contact. So that was a perfect time to launch that program. One of my favorite things to talk about is the success of our student athletes in the classroom. And as you can see, their GPA is tremendous. This is at a 3.57 cumulative GPA. We have about 400 student athletes, and this is at a rigorous institution. A lot of you from the poll are alums, so you know how challenging the degree programs are here. And a 3.7 for a student athlete, I think, is pretty incredible. Also, please remember that our student athletes are on 8 to 14-hour bus rides. They miss a lot of school. They miss a lot of class. So they are just incredible time managers. They are very much committed to their academic success as much as their athletic success. And I would be remiss if I did not thank our incredible faculty for supporting our student athletes in the classroom and understanding their schedules and the time demands between academics and athletics. And it goes back to why I love working here and why I've stayed here, is that I know our student athletes can perform very well on the playing surface, but they also excel in the classroom. And that makes me really, really proud. 61% of our student athletes received all academic honors from the conference or nationally. 55% of our student athletes were on the dean's list for fall semester that we just concluded. 91% is our academic success rate, which is basically the athletic version of a graduation rate. And I think what's really incredible about that is in the state of Michigan, we are 3rd, only behind the University of Michigan and Michigan State. And why this is so noteworthy is that Michigan Tech, being a Division II institution, we have partial scholarships. We have very few student athletes on a full ride scholarship. So for them to matriculate and to graduate and for us to continue to retain them when they are not on a full scholarship like University of Michigan or Michigan State student athletes is pretty incredible. And it's a testament, I think, to our coaches and how they recruit, and that they recruit top quality student athletes, and the commitment that they have throughout the year, not only for athletes to perform athletically, but for them to perform in the classroom. And a 91% academic success rate or graduation rate is pretty phenomenal. And speaking of recruiting, that leads me up to our first coach, who's going to share a little bit about recruiting at Michigan Tech and how we go about getting our student athletes here.
Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks, Janet, for having us, and thanks for everyone for joining us. Certainly humbled to be able to talk about athletics and recruiting, and I always look forward to an opportunity to, I guess, highlight some of the special parts of our student athletes here. I think it makes sense that we'll begin with recruiting, because essentially for us as coaches building a program, this is where it all starts. And if you think about the college process and how people come to Michigan Tech, it makes sense to begin with recruiting and student athletes, because like anyone, it's about the kind of student that we're bringing here. My first piece of advice I was ever given as a coach, right before I played against my old team, against my old coach, he says, Matt, you're going to be as good as you recruit. And, I think that is true in a lot of ways. It's an opportunity to build an organization with the right people. And athletics, we are charged with building our programs and with surrounding yourself with the right people. I'm proud of a lot of things that we have done here on our volleyball team, but probably none more than just the level of character and the kind of people we've had surrounding us throughout, my time here. It's been something else. The recruiting process tends to bring athletes to Tech in unique ways. It's a value for the university community. And a way I can demonstrate this is for a individual student athlete, the increased sense of ownership or the added personal investment kind of creates a heightened experience for them at Michigan Tech. It is another level of engagement in which they form a bond over the university or through or with the university. We're essentially bringing students here to Michigan Tech with just another reason to be, that much invested into what they're doing. There are differences in how we recruit among sports, and I think that's important to kind of demonstrate or point out here, and it's based on a variety of different factors. Team size and team roster needs and the state of the program. For example, football with a very large team, their recruiting classes are much bigger than, say, ours, or tennis. Youth prep sports and the nature of recruiting for a different sport or specific sports certainly influences the recruiting process. I think of hockey, for example, in the juniors circuit and program that precedes so many of their time in college. And then the level of play and competition. Rules differ between Division I teams and Division II. So that's to say hockey and the rest of us. And then even between sports, some of the rules or guidelines that are surrounding recruiting may differ. And of course, who you're recruiting against. So for example, I use hockey there. The breadth of who they're recruiting against is much larger. It's on a national stage or national scope, as opposed to, say, some of our Division II teams. While national implications are involved, we're recruiting much more regionally. But there are definitely some core similarities in the recruiting process amongst all teams, and that is in large part shaped by what a Tech education is. No doubt, our competitive advantages in recruiting are the ability to offer someone the opportunity to compete at a high level and pursue a high level education while studying a difficult subject matter. And to speak to what Suzanne mentioned in terms of the relationship with our professors and our faculty here, I mean, this is it. Time and time again, we find so many young potential student athletes just having a hard time finding that mix of, I really want to be an engineer, I really want to go to a school where I can get attention, hands-on education, but I'm not 6'5" and I can't play for the Wolverines or Gophers. There's something in between there that I think that Michigan Tech draws, and that ability to combine all those things really is our sweet spot. The regional appeal, of course, the academic strengths and interests that are involved, winter culture. You can't necessarily be a beach bum and want to come to Michigan Tech, and then the size and location. We're certainly not in downtown anywhere, and we are a good medium-sized school. The strength of Tech's reputation and the value of the degree. I can speak for all of our coaches that, when on the road recruiting, how many times you hear, oh my gosh, Michigan Tech, I have a nephew who went there. He was so smart and he does this and he does that. It's just, you hear over and over again, the reputation is just such an asset for us in our recruiting. I want to talk a little bit too about the process of recruiting, because I think this is sometimes either misunderstood or maybe not known at all. But the recruiting process it starts early, it's constant, and is the life of the program. I think one of the fundamental differences, or one of the fundamental strengths or important parts about what we're doing for the university even, and just in general, is that as coaches, we're getting to know students in a deeper way well before they arrive on campus. We're identifying a lot of these players or potential student athletes as freshmen, sophomore, or early into their junior years of high school. The evaluation process is kind of ongoing. It begins early, but it's both off campus, on campus, through video. I have to give my assistant Cindy a ton of credit for a lot of this work and arranging the visits and whatnot, but just the sheer amount of time it takes to evaluate and identify and communicate with recruits, it's significant. It offers us an opportunity to get to know our community, our student community, a little bit better before they come on campus. And it's certainly important to do so in order to build a culture of the team that you're looking to build. The contacts and the visits begin usually the summer of, rules are constantly changing, but I should say that the contact and visits as of now begin summer of their junior year. And these visits is an opportunity for us to spend time family and the recruits on campus in person with the team involved. And it's this time that we're able to gauge character and how they are in person and how they are with their parents and how they interact with the team. Our team has an opportunity to kind of be ambassadors for our program and our university. And oftentimes, and I think this is certainly the way it's operating now in our volleyball team, is our team is the one representing the program when the recruits visit. The amount of time that our girls spend with our recruits on campus during visits is significant. And I think that's important. They get to ask those types of questions to our current students without coaches around, but also have that opportunity just to see what campus is like through their eyes in a day. The verbal commitments typically come after that, right? Juniors, sometime in their junior year in high school, before their senior year, typically. There's always exceptions to this. And then the signing of a national letter of intent, which is a letter that basically says, I intend on coming to Michigan Tech to play basketball for so-and-so amount of athletic scholarship. And then it's a one-year contract that's renewed each year. Ultimately, it's about finding the right fit, academic, athletic, character combined. And, the Michigan Tech student, or those who are showing interest in Michigan Tech or the kind of education that we offer, narrows the field for us in a lot of good ways. And the best way I can explain it might be this, is if we are recruiting, say, 15 players and 10 of them want to be engineers, our chance of getting one of those 10 only goes up because of maybe they want to be an engineer. It narrows the field for us in a good way. There's a regional, national approach to all this, and of course, an international appeal. Briefly, I'll cover what a typical recruiting class looks like for our program. I kind of compiled some stats here over my nine years here now. Our average ACT for our players incoming, and these are players that have come and committed and end up playing here for us. Average of 29 in the ACT. The range is somewhere between 24 and 34. 3.8 GPA. We've had valedictorians and National Merit Scholar. A large number have been in the top 10 of their class. Many are in the National Honor Societies, Academic All-Americans. Athletic honors include national recognition, state recognition, and conference recognition, team recognition as well. We've had 9 different states represented in our time here. The vast majority come from Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Minnesota, all different parts of those states. And others that we've had, Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, Indiana, and Colorado for varying reasons, almost all because in some part because of our education. We've had 4 different countries represented, including the US, Italy, Colombia, and Canada. An incoming class varies in size, anywhere from 2 to 8 players in our program. Again, this could differ quite a bit depending on each team. Like I said, football and soccer have different size rosters than say we do, or basketball, or say Nordic skiing. A large majority of these student athletes come to study STEM. Doesn't mean they don't change majors or expand, but a vast majority do. Engineering of every kind we've had, material science, pre-health biology we've had a lot, especially recently come interested in medical school or PT school or OT school afterwards. We currently do have a handful of students that are double majoring. In fact, some I know electrical and mechanical engineering, chemical and material science, material science and chemical engineering. Many come with AP credits as well, college credit earned. We've graduated every player we've recruited, just one in our program has transferred out, and everyone with a 3.0 or higher. Almost all are employed or in graduate school of different sorts. And another just kind of tidbit here, our incoming class this year. So our group of new first-year students this year included 6 freshmen and 8 transfers. They had just under a 3.8 GPA in their first term at Michigan Tech. And so I think this isn't just about volleyball. This is, I think, about a good representation of our student athletes here. I don't think it's just our program, but I think it's a lot of us, department-wide. And I thought this would be telling that what you're seeing here, what you're seeing here is a group of players that have connections here, the Husky connection, we'll call it. There are ways to connect us with future Huskies. At the bottom of this slide, there are pictures of Tech hockey players and volleyball players that have relation to each other or connections to Michigan Tech, maybe before they came here. If you know a future Husky or someone that you know is interested in one of our sports or wants to be an engineer, there are ways that you can connect us. I think a video and highlights are a must. And I would say have those players reach out to us directly. There's nothing better than hearing from a recruit, individually from them and say, hey, so-and-so, I'm connected to Michigan Tech, so-and-so, I'm interested in maybe learning more about the program. The examples of that we've had here are daughters of alum, sisters of alum, nieces, cousins, granddaughters, family, friends of alumni, volleyball alumni. We had one of our incoming freshmen this year's good family friend is a professor of engineering in Wisconsin say, hey, I heard you're interested in engineering. I played volleyball at Michigan Tech. Why don't you give him a call? That kind of thing. Or just engineering in general. Hey, I know someone who's interested in engineering. Michigan Tech's a good place to be. So there's all kinds of ways that student athletes come here. They're all typically pretty good. And I've been part of 4 different athletic departments before coming here. And I can say recruiting at Michigan Tech is just, it kind of stands out, it stands out. And I think a large part is the specific and the quality of our education. And I think that goes for all teams. And I'll pass that on. Oh, we have some questions here. That's right.
We'll save the questions to the end, but I just want to say it's just music to my ears, as the academic dean of the College of Engineering, to hear, all those great things about our student athletes. Thank you.
You bet. So we'll save these then for the end. Is that right?
Yeah, we're going to save questions to the. Oh no, you have a poll. Yeah. We want your question. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So do I hit poll here then? Is it right?
Sue will release this poll, and everybody can see it already, but in a moment or two, you'll get a chance to vote. Here we go. So the question is, how many current Husky volleyball players are from overseas? All right, and so there's 3 choices. The first choice is 1, the second choice is 2, and the third choice is 3. Right. And the polls are coming in. People are guessing.
That's all guessing. I'm not going to say how good they're guessing so far, but so far, so good.
I always guess B on a multiple choice. I mean, that's just, everybody knows that. Guess B. All right, so we're going to end the poll. It looks like most people voted for B.
That's right. We have 2, one from Milan, Italy, and one from Bogota, Colombia. Both are setters. Both are double majors in, let's just say, difficult subjects, and just and doing it in their second language, no doubt. So, kudos to them for sure.
All right. And do you have another poll coming up here? Here we go. Do we have another poll coming?
Looks like it, yeah.
All right. How many Husky volleyball players carry an overall GPA of over 3.7? So there's three choices. A is 10, B is 7, and C is 5. Well, I'm just going to go for B again. I'm just saying. So this is, like how to design a quiz, so everybody gets the right answer, make all the answers B. So
Right.
We'll see what happens here, Matt.
That's right. That's right. And I will say it's a little skewed. That does include our freshmen. So there's the overall GPA is pretty high, but 10 out of our 15 this year carry over 3.7. That's right.
I am so proud of them. Woohoo! And you. All right, the third poll. How many Husky volleyball players carry an overall GPA of? Oh no, we've already done that one. All right. How many seasons in a row have the Huskies played in the D2 NCAA volleyball tournament? There's three choices: 2 times, 3 times, or 5 times. All right, B is definitely winning again. I think you've got. I don't know if you leaked the answers ahead of time or.
No, I think we did mention it in the beginning of that one, though. It is B, 3 in a row. It will be disrupted this year because of COVID and whatnot, but it's it's been a fun 3 years. Sure.
All right, this is the last quiz question to see how good attention you've been paying. This question asks, how many current Husky volleyball players had a Husky connection before coming to Tech? And by that, do you mean somebody who introduced them?
One way or the other, right? So if they had some kind of loose or even familial connection to Michigan Tech before coming.
And so we have the answers being 2 current Husky volleyball players had a connection, or 4 or 6. And this time 6 is winning. And I think you mentioned that. Did you mention that? 6?
If I did, it was subliminally, because that's I didn't guess that. I didn't think that people would be able to guess that so accurately, but it is 6 in one way or the other. And it's either, like I said, we have 2 daughters of alum, and we have loose family friends, or maybe just a suggestion. But in one way or the other, it's there's some connection, and I think teams across the board here really do benefit from that. And I think it's a strong thing. But thank you thank you for playing the polls. Thanks.
All right, so what's up next, Suzanne?
Sorry, I'm on mute. Tom is up. He's going to share a bit with the group about a day in the life of a student athlete and some training information.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and it's an honor to be able to present here on behalf of our Nordic ski team and Michigan Tech Athletics, and really talking about the student athlete experience today. We have a philosophical approach with Michigan Tech Athletics and how we go about looking at the student athlete experience. And that really is about creating a life in the balance. The Ncaa puts it this way: comprehensive learning and academic development, high-level athletic competition, community engagement, and prioritizing preparation for life beyond graduation. Really, for us, it is about the student and athlete success that we value in our achievements with Michigan Athletics and really with all of our sports teams. And this is at the forefront of how we structure our daily athletic programming and team activities to create a really positive student athlete experience here at Michigan Tech, and what we call the life in the balance for Michigan Tech student athletes.
Looking at the bottom of this slide, those are athletes on top of Mount Ripley. So you can see Michigan Tech a little bit in the background, and the Keweenaw Waterway for those of you that are missing Houghton and Hancock.
Thanks. Matt, do you mind going to the next slide? Thank you. So when do MTU athletic teams practice and how much? It does vary a little bit between our teams, but most of our student athletes, they have class between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. So some of our teams will do their team practices before 8 a.m. before the first classes of the school day start, and others practice in the afternoons or even early evenings. Our Nordic ski team right now, we really only practice as a team in the afternoons between 3 and 6. And what we've found is that this really helps maximize student athlete recovery by allowing them to get a little bit of more time to value sleep, especially in the competition season, without requiring them to be doing practices really early in the morning. And, you know, for our Olympic sports, and especially our endurance athletic sports like Nordic skiing and cross country running, it's really important for us to have individualization of training in addition to our team practices, because we do have a variance of how much our student athletes are training, whether they're a first year and they might be training 500 hours for the entire year, or they're a senior and they might be training 800 hours on the year. You know, that might be a difference between training skiing out on the trails for an hour up to 3 hours for a single training session. But on average too, you know, for our Nordic ski team, the student athletes are training 12 hours a week. They're going to school, obviously just as much of that, and they're studying even more. So it is a full-time job in balancing the student athlete life. How do coaches schedule team activity to promote student athlete life in the balance? What we strive to do as coaches is set practice times in accordance with the student athlete academic schedules. So one great benefit that our student athletes have here at Michigan Tech is the opportunity to register for their classes before the rest of the student body. And what this also does is help the coaching staff and all of the teams set the team training plans in accordance to the academic schedules and make sure that there's not going to be any conflict, so that we can have all of our student athletes participating in team practices, but also being able to register and take the classes that they not only need to graduate, but that they want to be able to take as part of their academic track. Coaches communicate the team and practice activity plans 2 weeks in advance of every week to provide structured and periodized competitive development programming. And what this does is allows our student athletes to structure their daily lives in accordance with our team practice and activities, and make sure that, you know, they can balance all of their commitments, because you obviously have a lot to manage in your daily life as a student and an athlete. We also really seek to keep our training times consistent every week throughout each semester for our student athletes. And this allows us to really have a balanced athletic approach and our expectations, athletically speaking, for our student athletes. And then lastly, our student athletes do have 1 day off from athletics every week. It's actually an Ncaa mandate, but it's really important. You know, for example, the Nordic ski team, we take every Monday off during the competition season, because what this allows us to do is recover on Mondays from the Saturday, Sunday back-to-back competition race weekends that we have. But it also affords time, a true day every week, for our student athletes to really focus purely on their academics, and also help them get ahead in their academic week, so that when they do have competition coming up on the weekends, you know, they don't have to be thinking about their academics, and they can be able to focus on their athletics at that point. But I think one other great thing is the teams have the ability to really select what day off they're going to do. And this is one fun thing about programming for coaches and teams, and how we're going to balance that aspect of it as well for all of our varsity athletic teams. So really, I wanted to finish my piece on just talking about the Michigan Tech high performance athletic environment and how we really stand out as a class of our own. All right, there's 3 big highlights that I think really make the student athlete experience here at Michigan Tech. One is the high performance, all encompassing athletic facilities that we have to offer. 2 is the unmatched accessibility. And I'll talk about that, but in terms of, you know, our athletic approach. And 3 is the small town, but big community engagement. We obviously have a really unique environment in that sense as well. So speaking of it from the Tech Trails, because I get to spend a lot of my time up there with the Nordic ski team, it's truly a world-class competition, recreation, and outdoor learning venue. You know, the Tech Trails is 60 kilometers of trails, which is amazing to have that as a part of our campus. But it's also 500 acres of recreational forest, and actually, you know, an outdoor learning center for, you know, our College of Forest Resources, Environmental Sciences. So you have a lot of user groups up there, and it's not just us going up there and using those venues competitively. It's a whole bunch of different student organizations, community members, classes. It's a really fun, immersed athletic environment that we do have here at Michigan Tech, and the Tech Trails is a great example of that. You know, the Tech Trails, it truly is the best accessibility for student athletes of any NCAA ski program in the country. And what I mean by that is we're the only place that our student athletes can literally walk from class to the ski trails and be training, right? Every other school, they have to jump in a van and drive maybe up to 45 minutes, maybe even an hour to get on snow. And this is an amazing thing that we have here at Michigan Tech, because it allows for more time for our student athletes to really commit to their academics, better recovery for athletic performance as well, because they're not having to spend so much time traveling to and from training, right? And then one other really cool thing is we get to train and compete at our venues that we're training in every day. So for example, the Tech Trails, we've got to host 5 US cross-country ski championships. You know, the biggest championship event that we have in our sport, not just at the collegiate level, but for our sport at any level in the country. And same with all of our team sports that use the SDC as their main facility. They get to practice in the varsity gym, and they have their competitions in there, as well as the student ice arena as well. The SDC is an amazing facility for Michigan Tech athletics as well, in the sense that it's an all-in-one athletic training facility, you know, complete with multiple weight rooms for our student athletes as well as the public and students. Our gyms for the varsity teams as well, our kinesiology and integrative physiology department that has exercise science research and performance testing labs that our teams utilize as well and have great partnerships with, athletic training rooms and staff, the McGinnis ice arena, you know, the list goes on, even full service locker rooms for all members, and obviously the connection to Portage Health system, which is an amazing resource for our athletic department in addition. So the big thing with the student development complex is it really does service all of the athletic programming needs for all 15 of our varsity teams. And it, you know, it offers an all-encompassing recreational facility as well for our Houghton community, which makes it really unique in the sense, like I talked about, where we're really immersed as a community and a student body and an athletic department. Lastly, I just wanted to talk about the student athlete life in the Ncaa specifically, because our physical environment is a huge part of the student athlete experience here. And Michigan Tech student athletes, we train hard, but we also like to play hard, right? They choose to come to Michigan Tech because of the academic environment, like Matt hit on greatly, the athletic environment, like I've talked about with our amazing facilities, and our unique small community with boundless opportunities for outdoor adventure. We are regarded as the most snow anywhere in the US here in Houghton, which I obviously really love being able to do this for my job. You know, we have 7 different Nordic ski venues throughout the Ncaa, and Janet did talk about that at the beginning of our Husky cast too, how she just went and explored a new place this last weekend. Pretty cool. We have over 200 inches of snow annually, 140 days of skiing, and as one of my great friends put it in my first year, he said, you know, Houghton's about as close as you can get to a mountain town in the Midwest, right? So that's a pretty cool experience that we offer, but it offers so much more than that. You know, obviously it's a great place if you love skiing, but it's also a great place to explore the outdoors. And we have a national park with Isle Royal that you can catch a flight to, or a cool boat ride to, right from Houghton. You can fish, you can kayak, you can even surf on Lake Superior. And that's a pretty amazing and alternative experience for being able to explore the outdoors. And obviously you can take part in Michigan Tech Experience Tech fees, offerings, for example, skiing at the Mount Ripley Hill. So yeah, obviously all of these are really key in just for us showcasing what Michigan Tech has, not just athletically, academically, but environmentally. And it's a big reason why our student athletes continue in their sports after their tenure with us, and why many of them never leave Michigan Tech. All right, thanks. And I believe I did my trivia polls a little bit differently, so I may have to read these unless they were inputted. But
yeah, Tom, go ahead and read them, and I'll type them into chat, and people can reply in chat if they want to.
okay, thank you. So one cool tidbit about the Tech Trails is that I want to include was how many annual total student uses are there at the Tech Trails. So that means, you know, for the entire season or year round, how many students frequent the Tech Trails and have every time they frequent, it counts as use.
And so we have about, correct me if I get this wrong, about 5,600 undergraduates. So that can give you a baseline guess point. So I'm going to guess 5,600.
Okay.
Or what's the second question?
All right, the second question, how many event participants do we have when we host a US Nordic Ski Championship? And obviously this is a pretty vague one, but I'll be lenient on the answer here.
Oh, all kinds of different answers are coming in on the chat. And by the way, if you have a question to ask at the end, post it in the Q&A, and we're going to handle those questions at the end. But if you just have a remark to make, you can post it in the chat. All right, what's the third question, Tom?
All right. What is the longest distance our Nordic student athletes race in their NCAA skiing competition? Remember, we go by kilometers for our sport because it's of its Scandinavian heritage.
Oh, you've got to just tell us the answer to that. I'll never figure it out. Wait, somebody has already answered 100 kilometers.
100, yeah, that would be quite
20,
far.
20, somebody else says. Harold says 20. Is 20 right?
20 is correct, yep.
Harold got it. So did Russ and Lee.
Yeah, but that's, yeah, equivalent to about 12.5 miles. So yeah, they obviously have to be pretty darn fit. On average, how many hours a year do our Nordic student athletes train for their sport?
I was going to go with 300. So Scott says
Yeah.
500 to 800. Lee says 800. Nicole says 1,000.
Yeah.
Russ says 600. Paul says 800. Is anybody right yet?
Russ is probably right on 600.
600.
Is pretty good. Yep, a range of around 500 to 800. Yep, great guess, Russ. And lastly, what are some cross-training activities that our student athletes use to train for their sports? Not just with Nordic skiing, but all of our Michigan Tech sports teams and student athletes.
Biking, says Michael.
Yep, biking, great. Mountain biking is obviously hugely popular. Michigan Tech as well. All those 60 kilometers of trails are also single track in the summer.
Swim, bike, running, swimming.
Swimming, yep, we do have.
What is it called when you see them on the paved trailing and they're on the rollerblade? Kind of like, what is that called?
Yeah, roller skiing. Yep.
Yep.
That's
I made one of your athletes fall
down.
down. I just want you to know I didn't do it. She got distracted by my dog and boom. So if you have an injury, it's my fault. I'm sorry about that. I'm so sorry.
We didn't hear about it, so you're good.
Running up Ripley, that's a great one. Yep, we do that. Everybody does that. Even men's basketball, we've seen them out there a few times doing some Ripley workouts. So yeah, it's obviously a really unique environment for us here at Michigan Tech to have so many different activities that our student athletes can really utilize to prepare for their sports as well. Thanks. I don't know if I've answered all of those polls, but I can certainly come back to them later and help provide some answers. So I'll let Sam take it from here.
All right. I also want to thank you guys for having me to be able to speak about our student athletes. I'm going to hit on a few topics, a little bit leadership, academic support, mental wellness, and then also community service. So for speaking about leadership, we truly believe, I think all of us as coaches here and administration, that our jobs and is so much more than just coaching basketball or coaching volleyball. It's truly to develop a person. And it does start with recruiting, and we're looking for that character. But once they get here, it's also developing that and helping them grow as people and how to deal with adversity as they move into real life, their careers, their families. So we're really lucky to have the support we do from administration. We have a leadership academy where coaches are allowed to handpick 25% of their roster to participate in this two-year program. And it gives them the foundation necessary to be a leader on their team, in the department, and across the entire university and community. So it provides additional building blocks necessary to grow a student athlete's leadership ability and positively impact the community around them. It also develops individual skills and gives them tools to become effective leaders who drive success within our athletic programs. But more importantly, it gives them skills that are going to carry forward into their careers when they graduate from Michigan Tech. So some of the goals in this leadership academy are that our student athletes will develop a personal leadership philosophy that will enhance their ability to lead both vocally and by example. Our student athletes will gather and process information and use that data to respond ethically and appropriately to difficult real life situations. Our student athletes will communicate effectively with teammates, coaches, and administration. They will apply leadership skills from the course into their athletic, academic, and professional lives. And they will recognize signs of mental health issues and take appropriate action to provide assistance. So that's kind of the background. More specifically, I'm not going to talk about what women's basketball does, but each program, each team here has went through. The first couple of years were books that we would read through with our student athletes. And as you can see there, the Team Captain's Leadership Manual by Jeff Jansen, along with the Team Captain's Culture Manual, are a couple books that we would go through. And it would usually be one chapter per week that we would read through and then meet with our student athletes and apply it to our team. This year has been really awesome. We've actually had a former Michigan Tech player, Jalen Boone, run a program called Build with Boone and Take Control of Your Life. And I know our student athletes have really appreciated the insight that he's brought, knowing that he's went through a lot of things that they have. He was a student here, so he had the rigorous academics and was also an athlete. So that's been really instrumental for our team. We're able to talk about the things that he brings up in his leadership meetings that are on Monday nights. And it applies to our team, but we always try to bring it to life as well, and life after basketball and life outside of basketball right now. So I think that's just a huge piece of what we're doing here as coaches. It's really to build leaders to go out into the community and out into the world and make it a better place. Next slide, please. Next, I'll touch on our academic support here for our athletes. I think it is second to none. We recruit high academic students, but we also give them the support that they need with their tough classes, with missing a lot of school traveling. One thing that we do with all incoming freshmen is study tables, and that just means that they have to log 6 hours per week up here in our offices, or sometimes we'll do them in the library. But it's time set aside specifically to study, do homework, no phones. So we really want to make sure that first year that they get off to a great start. Sometimes time management can be difficult going from high school to college. It's just a very different structure. So we want to get them off on the right foot that freshman year. If they do well, for us, it's above a 3.5, they're out of study tables. But if they are below the 3.5, then they will continue to stay in those. We're also allowed free tutors here, and I think that is so awesome. Even for our student athletes, sometimes if they're getting a B and they want to get an A and they're just not understanding one little piece of the class, they'll get a tutor to help them. We also have a lot of players on our team that our tutors for other students, because as you saw from the previous slides and Matt talking and Suzanne, we do have some very high academic athletes here. And another thing that's available to all students, as well as our athletes that use the learning centers, 15 different places on campus where they can get help. So a lot of opportunities for them to be successful. And that's a great piece about Michigan Tech. I think everyone here has the same vision, and it's really to help each other to grow and be successful for life after Michigan Tech. Mental wellness is somewhere I felt like we were really ahead of the curve, and I'm so grateful that we have the administration that we do. We hired Sarah Dowd as the Director of Student Athlete Wellness and Clinical Counselor. That was just this past summer before all of the COVID happened, and there were so many quarantines and isolation and not being able to practice. I know even without that, there's a lot of stress and pressure on student athletes and just managing the time. So I think it's so critical that they have that outlet where Sarah Dowd is up here in the student development complex, and she's an in-house therapist to counsel the student athletes in balancing the mind, body, and sport for optimal mental health and well-being. And I think that is so critical every year, but even more specifically this year, because I think everyone has had a hard time this past year, and myself included. It's just very different. And she also works with coaches and trainers for best practices on how to deal with mental health issues. As you can see below there, there's a list of student athlete wellness services. So there's individual counseling. I think group counseling is great when you know other people are going through what you're going through. That's they call it Huskies Connected. Also, once a week, they do a student athlete wellness series, just little tips and tricks for student athletes. So they're doing that through Zoom right now. So that's really nice. Mental health, first aid training, QPR training. So all of those things to really aid our student athletes in their mental wellness as well. And then lastly here, I'll talk a little bit about community service. So I truly believe our student athletes on the women's basketball team, along with all the student athletes here at Michigan Tech, just get such great support from our community. And it's such a tight-knit community. Being a part of a smaller community like we are, we really want to give back, and we know how grateful and blessed we are to be here. So we look for opportunities where we can give back. As you can see from the statistics that we have listed, out of our teams, everyone participated in volunteer activities 100%. And even through this year with COVID and not necessarily being able to be out in the community as much, we still logged 299 hours with our student athletes. And then you see a little bit of a breakdown of the different ways we were able to help and volunteer. So with children and youth, that was 162 hours, almost 163. That's Little Huskies, Ski Tigers. So anything working with the youth, that's something I know our team loves to do. Michigan Tech Athletics, just helping out around the SDC as well, working games. And then in the community, again, really wanting to give back, Little Brothers, Rotary, the Humane Society. That's 114 hours. And then the last couple there, the health, we work with Dial Help. And then our players, again, I can only speak for our players, but they love going into the elementary schools. They read for the students, and a lot of the students really look up to the Michigan Tech athletes. And I think it's just so great that our players can go in and read to them and kind of build a relationship, because kind of like they're heroes. So we talked a lot about academics. So I have a little poll for you guys as well. Out of the last 15 years, how many of those years has our women's basketball team been in the academic top 25? So out of 15 years, was it 12, 14, 15, or 10? And then as you answer, you can see below, these are some pictures from this year. On the left is Cassidy Trotter taking a shot against Lake State. Right next to that is our team huddling before starting the game. Right next to that is Ellie McKay shooting a jumper. And then Sloan Zenner driving to the basket. She's actually from Houghton here. And then next to her is Jordan Ludasher shooting a left-handed layup against Lake State. And then lastly is just us coming out just at our starting lineup.
So what's the answer to the
The
poll?
answer is B, 14 out of 15 years. You guys had high expectations, a lot of C. We missed one, but I'm still very proud of them.
Thank you, Sam, Tom, and Matt. I'm just going to conclude with a little bit of the COVID challenge. We were actually at last March when COVID hit and things started shutting down. We actually had several programs at Ncaa championships and had to get back because the championships were stopped, unfortunately. And as we know, the pandemic has reached into the fall semester, winter and spring now as well. And we have been really fortunate that we have the COVID testing lab on campus, which I think was a previous Husky Bite webinar for all of you. And that because of the lab, we actually started working with the lab in June because our student athletes were beta tests for the lab process. And we started actually testing our student athletes in small groups starting back on June 15th. And we gateway tested them back to campus so that they could come into the SDC and lift weights and do some conditioning. That gateway testing went from about June 15th to September 1st. And then we did a lot of testing in the fall. All of it, we had a surveillance program that we were following. And a lot of the guidelines were coming from, at that time, the NCAA, the Sports Science Institute, which is a tremendous organization made up of sports medicine physicians, epidemiologists, some of the best public health folks across the country. And we followed a lot of the SSI in terms of testing protocol, education, and daily symptom monitoring. Now we have conference-related protocols that we follow that outline how many times per week we need to test and who needs to test. And then most recently, I guess since about November 15th or so, we've had to follow the state of Michigan guidelines from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. A little bit more information on that. We have categorized our sport into low, intermediate, and high risk transmission. And that's based on whether there's contact or no contact. So a men's and women's basketball would be a high contact sport versus a Nordic skier, which would be a low contact sport. You also need to consider whether that sport is played indoors or outdoors. So indoor, our track and field athletes that are practicing indoor right now have a higher risk of transmission than our cross-country runners who might be training outdoors. So we have divided everything into these different intermediate, low, and high. And then from there, we determine what kind of testing plan we need to have. The testing plan is a combination of PCR and antigen, at least it was in the fall semester. And now we are moving strictly to an antigen model. And the antigen model, again, is based on the low, intermediate, and high. And for our high-risk sports, and based on the state of Michigan protocols right now, in the sports that we are competing, which is men's and women's basketball and hockey, we are actually testing those student athletes 6 times per week. So we test them Sunday through Friday, every morning at about 7 a.m. with an antigen test. If that antigen test is positive, we then immediately do a PCR sample and get it to the lab. And our lab is phenomenal. We are sometimes getting that turned around. If we get the PCR sample to our lab by 8:30, we'll have a result on that by 5 o'clock. And we then work through the close contact process. I also want to add that the athletes that can be outdoors, we might be testing 3 times per week. We have some athletes and some programs that are masking and testing 3 times per week, but it all just depends on where that sport program falls between low, intermediate, and high risk. I also want to add, testing is really, really important, but it is not the end all be all. It's only that one little, that time that it took to swab that athlete that test result is accurate. So we really had to put a lot of time and energy into education and the daily health screening process. So we not only have a campus-wide health screening process, but we have an athletic-specific health screening app that all of our athletes have to complete every day before they can come into the gym or onto the court. And that includes temperature taking when they come into the building. We've also had to retrain their thinking. The education process has been really important. Athletes tend to be, right from when they start, to play through and be tough and to tough it out. And if you have a sniffle, you play. And we've had to really retrain their thinking on that, because we know that the really mild cases, or even athletes that might be, for the most part, asymptomatic, would chalk up a runny nose maybe to allergies, when in fact it could be COVID. So we have had to really spend a lot of time in that process of education and just retraining their minds, in that it's the right thing to do to say you don't feel well, and to stay away so that the rest of your team can continue to participate. We've also had to rethink our practices and how we compete. Our coaches have been tremendous. We work often in pods. We think about who lives with whom, who lives with whom. So those individuals might train more together than those that live separately. Our coaches are masters of Zoom. Anytime we can have team meetings via Zoom versus in person is what we needed to do. And this is all in a way to minimize contact tracing and minimize the spread. What we have found in our process when we do have a positive is that it typically, every positive case that we've had in athletics, it's traced back to who lives with whom versus practice situations. And we've confirmed that and worked with our epidemiologists. So we can't change who lives with whom, but we certainly feel that the mitigation efforts that we've taken for practice have really decreased the spread related to their time spent in their sport. Our athletes really have sacrificed a lot. They are basically, for the most part, living in a bubble. They are trying to just stay with their teammates, stay in their housing arrangements, to and from class. But other than training for their sport and class and their roommates, they really don't see a lot of other people, and that's by design. And I think they understand very much the risk of that. We did do another gateway testing over the holidays and had caught a few cases before any practices started. And we have had to shut, for example, hockey down for 2 weeks, but it's taken a lot of collaboration and flexibility amongst all of us in our conferences, our member institutions. In the WCHA, for example, coaches that normally don't want to give an inch because of their competitive juices and the competitiveness have said, whatever you need, let's just try to make the games happen. How can we do it? And so, I think our message to our athletes and to our coaches over this COVID period has been, celebrate every opportunity you get to practice and celebrate every opportunity that you get to compete. And I think our coaches and athletes and our entire staff has really embraced that. And I can tell you that with all the stress and the challenges and the changes and everything that's happened with COVID, to see women's basketball and Nordic skiing, those athletes and coaches get to do their sport makes it all worth it. So I'll close with that. Sorry we went a little long. We are all very passionate about what we do. And thank you to Tom, Sam, and Matt, because you did a great job. Thank you.
Well, and thank you as well, Suzanne, in addition to our talented coaches. We've called a hard stop on Husky Bites at 7:15, and we do have some questions, and I believe we have time for some questions. But I want to point out that if there's anyone out here who has an additional question for any of the coaches, we've just posted their emails in the chat. And so Suzanne, feel free to pick a question for you to answer, or for one of our participants to answer, or any of you, Sam, Matt, and Tom, pick out any sort of question. There's been a few floating through the chat and a few floating through the Q&A. And from me, before we begin with those questions, I just want to thank everyone again. It is my honor to have Michigan Tech Athletics featured this evening. And there was a question earlier on how do we give to athletics? And I believe I posted that in chat.
I think you did, Janet.
I thought I did. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You just would go to mtu.edu/giving/athletics. And like I said, if you would like to do that and also sponsor Husky Bites, just drop an email to engineering@mtu.edu and we will honor your gift as a sponsor.
So I can fly through a few of these questions. When was the last time Tech had an alpine ski team? I believe it was in the early 80s. One of the reasons we don't right now is because there are no other varsity alpine ski teams in the Midwest. Unlike Nordic skiing that has a central region, alpine is either west or east. Certainly a sport that I keep on my radar screen because we do own a ski hill. And actually I was an alpine skier in high school, grade school. That's actually, I learned to ski at Ripley. So skiing is near and dear to my heart, but it remains on our list of possible sports to add in the future. Another question is from Kent about leadership and mentorship and how are intramural athletes monitored by the athletic department. Back in the day, there was interaction. So intramurals actually I think about 2 years ago, now reports up through athletics and recreation through me. So we are tying some of those pieces into some of our IM, at least the employees, the student employees that work there who tend to be very active in intramurals as well. So IM is very active in this building. Not many of our D2, very few of our athletes participate in IM because of, as you can see, their schedules are really tight. You might see a few in their senior year after they have exhausted their eligibility and can no longer, play football or volleyball. They might get involved with IM at that point, but very few will do that. I've answered the question about COVID challenges.
Well, and I'm gonna jump in. There's a question from Eric in the chat. Who is interested in how instruction is going on campus. And so we are in-person instruction on campus with social distancing. Our students were tested when they returned to campus. There's going to be periodic testing. Michigan is doing really well, actually. And the first week we were not. We were remote the first week by governor's order, and now this is our second week, and so we are live instruction. And so it's so wonderful. I was saying this in the beginning. It's just so nice to see our students back on campus.
It is. Scott, we have many rec leagues like lacrosse, and actually women's lacrosse is one of the sports we do have on our potential future list along with swimming and diving. Here's a question for Tom, Matt, and Sam. Maybe you could give a one-word answer. What is the single most important mindset skill you think a student athlete should possess?
I'm going to go with perseverance. There's going to be a lot of.
I'm going to go with motivated.
You're up, Tom.
I'm probably going to have to go with balance because that was a big part of my presentation.
Well, and so I'm pulling from the chat, Suzanne, so you don't have to look through that. So I don't know, how are international students recruited?
I could answer that a little bit, and I think it differs between teams and circumstance. For our two international players, we found them. Laura, our setter from Milan, was an exchange student downstate at a very, very small school and was very interested in engineering. And there was a connection there in her time here in the States. And then Lena was a transfer student from a school in Texas who wanted to pursue engineering. And so we found her through that way. I know, Tom, do you want to speak to that a little bit with some of your roster?
Yeah, sure. We have quite a few of our Nordic student athletes that are international students as well. And we have currently 3 women, 2 of them from Norway and 1 from Sweden, and then a Swiss guy and a Finnish guy. And we've been able to recruit our international student athletes through a variety of different resources, recruiting resources. One is we've actually pulled a couple of student athletes through our exchange programs, which is really awesome that Michigan Tech provides those. There are a couple of professional recruiting services that will reach out to us, especially with a sport like skiing that has, as I mentioned, a really rich Scandinavian tradition and participation. So there are a lot of prospective student athletes from those countries that they might not have the opportunity to both study and be a competitive athlete at the level that we offer. And so they're seeking to come to the US for those reasons. And we actually get a lot of outreach from those student athletes themselves, which is great that Michigan Tech has that draw.
If I could add one thing to that too, and I think that something that is easy to forget sometimes being here in the States is college sports in our country is just such a unique thing. And so it doesn't exist in its current form anywhere else in the world. And so this opportunity for college age athletes to continue their education and play sports at this level is just, it can't happen in other countries the way it does here. And so I think you see this appeal for, for those who want to come to the States for their education continued, sure, but this rare opportunity to continue to do it as an athlete as well. And I think that the opportunities across the country really are pretty great for that. It helps to be at a school where there is an academic draw to all that as well. That answers it.
I don't see any other questions, so.
I can see a few.
Okay.
First, Jim just had a comment. Nice to see you, Jim. The COVID kind of explanations was the most enlightening part of today's talk. So thank you, Suzanne, for kind of featuring that. And so this is coming up on both places. What is the single most important mindset skill you think a student athlete should possess? Did we answer that? Okay, that's right. That was the 3 words. So repeat it again. Perseverance,
Motivation, balance.
balance. And then what if you are not an athlete but want to approach life like one? How do you begin?
I can jump in here. I mean, I think it's all about participation, right? And I think that's one thing that we have really seen as an important part of our involvement in sport as coaches throughout this pandemic is just how much we really value the privilege and opportunity to participate. So that is my message. Get out there and get involved, right? You can't say that you're not an athlete if you don't try it. And everyone has the opportunity to be an athlete in any sport. So get out there, try all the sports that you would want to try and maybe really devote yourself to as a collegiate student athlete in the future. And that, I think, is a great way to really jump in the deep end, so to speak.
If I could add one thing to that too is, the sense of a lot of times, trying things for the first time or showing that vulnerability of like, okay, I've never done this before. I may not be very good at it, but I'm going to try it. And that willingness to be vulnerable is one thing. But I'd also say for like giving advice to younger people or to your children, or, I would just encourage people to take advantage of all sports of every kind and try different kinds of sports. As much as I recruit volleyball players who seem to have been playing volleyball for way too long, I think that I value athletes who come to us with athletic IQ and a diverse experience, basketball, soccer, whatever it is. Just that interaction or the social skills that are built from around that is so valuable. And I think too often in today's society that we're really starting to specialize in sport too young. And I would just say, for anyone out there who has an opportunity to encourage people to play more sports or different kinds of sports, go for it.
I have a little bit of an update. The Michigan Tech Hockey Huskies are playing Northern Michigan right now, and we are winning 3-1 with 3:33 to go in the third period.
Nice.
Woo!
PSA for everybody.
Awesome. My interpretation of that question might have been a little bit different, but it sounded like you're not going to play athletics, but how do you still live like an athlete while not playing a sport? I'm not sure if that's what you were asking, but I'm going to answer in that regard. And I think with our athletes, what we focus on is pursuing excellence. And that's something that you can do every single day in whatever it is that you are pursuing. So for us, it's on the basketball floor and it's pursuing a national championship or just being our best every single day. So I think if you're not an athlete, you want to live like an athlete. Something that we really focus on is our overall vision is building a tradition of excellence and sustaining a tradition of excellence through meaningful relationships on our program. And that happens through sacrifice. And so those are things you can do, I think, no matter what you are pursuing, whatever your strengths are, because maybe it's not athletics and that's 100% okay. And you can still, I think, have that perseverant mindset and that motivation and those things we talked about, and still be successful. And it's just dependent on how you define success. And if you're truly just trying to be your best every day and take a step and grow, that's what we're teaching our athletes. And that's something you can do every single day as well.
Well, those are outstanding concluding remarks, Sam. It's been an incredible honor to have all of you here on our opening season for Husky Bites. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, audience, for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you next week to learn about stunting stenosis. And so thank you, everyone. Good evening from Houghton, Michigan.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Go
Go
Huskies.
Huskies.
Thank you.
Go Huskies.
Go Huskies.
Go Huskies.